Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's really awesome to be able to tell this story to you. And here we go. Sisters are treasures, and mine is no exception. If you don't already have a sister, I recommend that you get one as soon as you can. They're worth the trouble. My sister is 11 years younger than I am, and although she's a bit of a pain earlier in her life, she grew into this from a naughty younger sibling into this amazing, accomplished, and exceedingly adult woman. I admire her drive, her determination, and her fortitude. And I also find her just a tiny bit intimidating at times. I mean, she's adulted so much more than I have already, even though I am the older sibling. You see, I also have a nephew, and he's a pretty special kid. He's my sister's first child, and she, of course, loves him dearly. He's tall with light brown hair, a serious expression, and a cheeky grin. He grew up next to where we grew up on the wild countryside of Canada, with plenty of wildlife, forests, and fields, and rather far from any city. He is the apple of his mother's eye and her very favorite older son. And I was surprised and pleased that the sister allowed my nephew to travel all by himself all the way to Hong Kong in the spring of 2019 to visit his very favorite auntie. Now, I have no kids, and I've always suspected that my sister feels that I might be somewhat lacking in the childcare department. Like kids are some kind of big mystery or something, and that I just wouldn't understand. She may have a point there. So when we first came up with the idea of the nephew visiting alone, my sister was remarkably calm and casual about it all. But as the date approached, her maternal anxiety began to manifest. Are you sure you're ready for this? She'd say again and again. You've never had a teenage boy in your house, she warned. They're strange creatures, quiet and surly. Are you sure you can deal with them? He's never lived in a city before. He might get lost. You have to promise to keep him safe. I reassure her again and again, there's nothing to it. After all, he's not a baby. He's a 14-year-old man boy with a deep voice and a calm, relaxed manner. And if he wants something, he'll tell me. It's not like he's unable to speak his own mind. Besides, I'm not even alone. My husband would be there too, and one of us will be with him all the time. How untrustworthy does she think I am? The day comes, and the nephew arrives, and of course, everything is fine. We go to the usual tourist things you do in Hong Kong. We take the Star Ferry, we visit some landmarks, and we go for a nice hike on Llama Island. We have a lovely time. And although I admit to myself in moments of reflection that 14-year-old boys are not the most thrilling conversationalists. Other than that one-sided conversations, though, the rest is pretty smooth. He eats everything put in front of him. He washes himself. He takes care of himself. And honestly, this nephew care thing is a breeze. Of course, I keep his mother up to date. Daily selfies, food intake, sleep, the usual things to put her mind at rest. She seems relaxed, hardly ever giving advice on me or checking much if I'd followed her instructions. At no point do I leave him to get lost or kidnapped or murdered in this unfamiliar and faraway city. All is going well. I am an excellent auntie. Until one day. That one day where I had a teaching commitment that I could not break, an after-school art class at an international secondary school. The school is beautiful and careful, and I assumed that they would look frowningly on a part-time art teachers who casually park their man-sized nephews in the corner of a classroom as they teach. I'd planned to leave the nephew at a nearby shopping mall, but on the way I got flustered and we got late, and I ended up having to bring him to the school with me. Now, the good thing about secondary schools is that they understand about teenagers. No matter that everyone else in Hong Kong seemed to think that he was a fully grown adult, anyone working in a secondary school can recognize a teen right away. Of course, he could hang out there, I was told. He could go sit in the very public, very friendly ground floor cafeteria. Great. I park him there, I get him a coffee and a sandwich, and I make sure that he has his mobile phone. I'm anxious. I'm thinking of my sister's wrath if I somehow manage to lose or damage the nephew in any way. But he's only sitting in a cafeteria in a secondary school. He'll be fine. I'm teaching a class on bookbinding to a group of students this week, and it takes all of my concentration. Guilty and feeling a bit bad for leaving the nephew all alone with no entertainment, I text him 15 minutes into the class. Everything okay? I ask. Yep, he responds. I concentrate on clear instructions to my class and making sure that all the pages are facing the right direction and that no one sews their books together backwards. 30 minutes pass, and I again find another brief second. All okay? I text. Yep, he responds. Great. All my anxieties of earlier of him being escorted off the premises or asked what on earth he was doing there, a strange teen out of uniform, all quietly go back into the dark closet they came out of. 45 minutes, and I know I'm being a bit fussy, but I text him again as I untangle some thread and point a student towards the right hole. No sewing goes in and out, not around and around. All okay? There's a longer pause than the last two times. And I get a message that says, there's a rat in the cafeteria. A rat. Well, now I admit I'm not very concerned about this very country boy seeing a wild animal inside a building. He's sensible. He'll stay away from it. My phone pings again. I caught it, the message reads. I had two students standing in front of me asking for help threading their needles, and I'm trying to be a professional and not swear out loud. He caught the rat. Visions of visits to the hospital as my nephew gets a series of rabies shots. And I put off phoning to tell his mother that he may have to stay a few extra days until the course of treatment finishes float through my head. Ping. It's okay, the message reads. I washed my hands. This was not okay. This was not okay at all. I have 5 kids in front of me now, and we have 7 minutes left of class, and I'm flustered, I'm worried, I'm not concentrating on the task in front of me. I take a deep breath. Whatever has happened, I tell myself. There are other adults around. They'll make sure that he's okay, and they'll surely not take him to hospital until I finish the class, say goodbye to my students, and make my way through the labyrinth of halls to his side, right? Ping. It escaped, says the text. What next? I think just stay away from it. Open a door and let it run off. I usher the students outside in a calm and professional manner. And as soon as the last blazer turns the corner towards the locker and there are waiting buses, I take off on a run to the bank of elevators reserved for teachers' use. In the lift, I'm pressing the buttons. I run down the hall until I can see reception. There's no lights. There's no sirens. I slow to a fast walk up the stairs to the cafeteria. And there he is, standing almost where I left him, looking annoyed and disgruntled, but whole, unbroken, unbitten. His hands do look clean. What happened? I asked, slightly out of breath. There was a rat. Yeah, I got that part. I rolled my eyes the way he had at me several times during this visit. People were running around like crazy, he said, throwing things at it, screaming. Kids? I asked. No, the staff, he said. A teacher, too. Grown-ups. There was a tinge of disgust in his voice. It ran beside me where I was sitting eating my sandwich, he said. There was a plant pot, so I just slid it over and pressed firmly into it, and then it was trapped. But I didn't hurt it. I grabbed its tail and just picked it up. Didn't bite you? I asked again. No, he said, and the adults came over with a bucket and told me to put it into it. So I did. I tried to tell them they should cover it up or the rat would jump out, but they were shouting and running about. One of them put the bucket on the floor and the rat jumped out just like I said it would. Then someone threw a tray at it and stunned it, and someone else stepped on the tray and it killed it. And then he turned to me and he said, why did they have to do that? Couldn't they have just released it? People are so cruel. And I looked at this child who was almost a man, whom my sister and I had been so worried about coping in an unfamiliar country, in a city far from his home. He'd stay calm while others around him were losing their heads. He'd assessed the situation, then solved it, and found enough compassion to be distressed by a needless death where others had seen only a pest that needed to be disposed of. He was a pretty cool kid. He'd be just fine. Me, on the other hand, that was a completely different matter. Let's get out of here, I said. And as we're going out the door, I turned to him and asked him the really important question. So, what are we going to tell your mother? And that's the end.